So let's get us started. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. I know that it's Labor Day and we are not supposed to be working. And I really appreciate that you decided to join us. Um, I am Brandon Lloyd, the director of Teacher Panda, which is a community of English language teachers and teacher trainers who want to provide access to knowledge and to training for those who cannot afford paying for it, because we know that it's not that cheap. And this is a collaborative project in which several institutions have participated with us. So I have to say thank you to different institutions like Códice, which they provide support to the LGBTQ plus community, to Enseña por México. Enseña por México, well, is a non-profit organization that gets several professionals to try to reduce the educational inequity in the country. So I believe that the work they do is amazing. And actually the speaker of today is their specialist, sorry, the director of their early childhood program. So I'm really happy to have her with us. I would also say thank you to CANADEM, the Cámara Nacional de la Mujer, because we're also working with them to support women in the state of Michoacán. Unite for Literacy, which is a completely free online library to target emerging readers around the world by providing them access to books that are relevant and culturally rich as well. And also to English for Life, TESOL Academy, because they have supported us a lot. They provide teacher training courses as well as a smart training. English for Life, they do it in the States, and smart training, they do it in Mexico. What they aim to do is to provide training at an affordable price. So it is an honor for me to introduce our speaker today. Her name is Brenda Bernaldez. As I told you, she's the director of the Early Childhood Program at Teach for Mexico. And she has been in the field of English language teaching for many years. She has been an academic manager and program manager with more than 20 years of experience. She has a master's in education. And when I met her, she was my boss actually at the American Embassy. I was working for the English Access Micro Scholarship Program, and she was a cultural affairs specialist, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember her title exactly. And when I met her, I was really surprised because I was expecting someone in a suit and like really formal. And when I met her, I was like, I want to be like her. Someone with so much energy, with such like this attitude towards life that is like, okay, we can do it, let's be fun, and we can be professionals, but at the same time we can be ourselves and keep that going to promote it around the world. So it is an honor for me to present to you Brenda Bernaldez. Welcome, Brenda.
Hi, Brandon. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here on Labor Day, and thank you for that warm welcome, Brandon. I'm not sure if I'm exactly what he said I was, but I try to be very, very active. So let's start with our workshop today. Our workshop today is about teaching English to children. So I would really, really like for you to put on the comments if you're currently working with children, or if you have worked with children, or if you're interested in working in children, or if you just are here because you don't have anything to do on a Friday afternoon. So tell us why you're here. That would be very, very interesting to know. And with further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see the workshop presentation. So for me, it has been a pleasure to start working for Enseña por Mexico. As Brandon said, I have been working in the English teaching field for a long time, longer than I wanted to admit. And when I started teaching in Enseña por Mexico, it gave me the chance of exploring one of my passions, which is teaching to young learners and how young learners develop in different areas. So I have always had this intuition that children are magical creatures, but now is much more um, certain that they are. And the way of teaching to children is through the heart. I think everybody learns better when they are captured by the people around them in a very warm way and in a um, caring way. But this is especially true for children. And I'm going to show you some data that prove that. And then we're going to go to the actual um, part of the how to teach children. So it has been proven that the most important period in any person's life is the first 3 years. Most of the abilities that you develop are developed in these 3 years. It's some of them go up to the 6 years, but after the 6 years, whatever it's not done, it's going to be much more difficult to do in the future. We have lots of research, neuroscience research, that show us that there are critical periods in the development of the human mind. So if you see the chart there, you can see that there are critical, sensitive brain development periods. And most of what happens starts happening when you are 0 to 5, and then it starts going down, 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 down. So some of the things that we can see here is how you develop the numbers idea, the social skills, language, concepts, ways of responding, and this is how you react to different situations, emotional control, vision, hearing. I wanted to tell me if you remember when you were this age, 0 to 5, and if you remember anything that you learned in that moment, even if it's a concept or a way of behaving or a way of being. So please write it on the comments, and I'm gonna check what do you write. I see many of you work with children, or want to be working with children, so that's also good. Also, this is the first time I do this in not live version, like face to face physical version. So excuse me if I am a little bit lost on this, but let's see if we have any comments. In the meantime, I see that again that you have many of you work or want to work with children, which is good. I would love to talk about your experiences. So do you still remember songs from kindergarten? Good. Cookies. Good. Real Mexico. Songs from kindergarten. That's very important. We're going to check about songs. You remember drawing. Good. Do you remember anything about the way you were told to act when you were in kindergarten? Taught me how to read and write when you were 5 years old. Great, Adrian. That's wonderful. Paola, I learned some names of plants. Wow, and your father taught you. Very good. Drawing and coloring a lot. Great. Yeah, it's very used. We're very used to having drawing, coloring, singing, and that has a reason to be. It's not just because people don't have anything else to do in kindergarten. It has a real reason of why this is happening. So, stress, we all experience stress in our lives. In fact, this is a very stressful moment for many of us. And children also um, sense this stress and experience this stress. However, in these first 6 years, let's call early childhood from 0 to 6. That's going to be our working definition. Early childhood goes from 0 to 6. And in this moment, when you are 0 to 6, in this period of your brain development, anything that causes stress to your brain or to your body is going to impact more on the way your brain is developing. So even as an adult, we sometimes feel stressed and we feel it physically. For example, right now I'm very stressed and I can feel my ears very hot. When I am more stressed, I get tummy ache. Some of you may have backache or different ways of expressing of your body expressing stress. In the sense, in the children, what happens is that stress starts affecting the brain development. And there is a classification of different kinds of stress. We have positive stress. Positive stress is what helps us keep on moving, what motivates us. For example, when you are very, very anxious, but at the same time happy, maybe because you're going to go for the first time on a trip, or maybe because you're going to meet someone new, or because you are having a workshop with Brandon and you are excited, but at the same time, you are very afraid. This positive stress makes you try to do your best and helps you to react. Then we have tolerable stress. Tolerable stress is something that it's not as pleasant, but you can cope with it. You have the skills and you have probably the network around you to cope with that tolerable stress. For example, when you are sick, that would be tolerable stress, or when you are having a very bad day at school or at your office, that is tolerable stress. Also, this is limited in duration. If you have one bad day, that is tolerable stress. If you have a whole month or year of very bad days, that becomes toxic stress. This is when you are experiencing strong, frequent, and prolonged adversity. For example, people that are having someone that is terminally ill, or people that are suffering constant aggressions. For example, in the case of children, someone that is being bullied for a long, long time, that would be toxic stress. If children experience long time of toxic stress, this diminishes their ability to react, it affects their brain development, and it also makes them hide among hide in themselves and not try to socialize. So, why am I telling you this? Because sadly, we have many people, many children in our classes that are suffering from toxic stress. In Mexico and in general, we have children that have these not so positive situation at home, or maybe they have a very violent neighborhood that they live in, even if they have a very positive situation at home. There are many, many ways in which children experience stress. Right now, I think everybody, and I can say worldwide, is stress because uncertainty causes this stress, and it has been for a prolonged time. Can you think of any other situations in which children would experience toxic stress? Don't put coronavirus or COVID 19. Any other situations like in the previous coronavirus era or after the coronavirus era where children experience toxic stress. Also, think of a way, think of a situation that you could say that it's tolerable stress for children and a situation for positive stress for children. So if you want to share any of these three, it would be very, very useful to have them in the comment section. In the meantime, also, while talking about the stress, the way of making toxic stress tolerable stress is by helping children cope with what's happening. And the way we help children cope with what's happening is by providing them an adult, a caring adult that helps them process what is happening, that cares for them, that um, okay, domestic violence that helps them deal, for example, with what it's putting here, domestic violence, bullying, family issues, in-home violence, health problems, all that. If we have all that, and let's focus on the family part. If we have a child who's suffering from toxic stress in their houses and they don't have any adult, a caring adult that could support them process what is happening, we can be that adult. We can be that caring adult that helps them reduce the toxic stress to be tolerable stress. That helps them realize that there is someone that cares for them. It is said that in all parts of your life, but especially in early childhood, it is very important for you to realize that there is at least one adult that really and truly cares for you. And that can make the difference. And I know from experience, from being a student, and from having other teachers being that person, and from having been that person, that a teacher's actions can change a child's life for better, but it can also change them for worse. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we can make children's life better from our um, work. So this is what I was telling you when toxic stress occurs. What we see is that there is a problem physically and cognitively, and you can see here how a normal neuron looks and a damaged neuron looks. So this is not just inventions from Brenda. This is actually based on neuroscience. And this is also happening to you in your adult life. So that's why it's very important to find ways of dealing with the stress. Now, how do we reduce the stress? As I was telling you, we can be that caring adult and we can use strategies to reduce that stress and at least give the child a place where he or she feels safe and where she or he can experience positive stress. How we do it? If we play, we do it. Through play, we can create bonds with the children. We can help them with their social and emotional wellness. We can help that they developed in a better and healthier way, and that provides them with the capacity of being resilient in the future. So when we include play in our classes, it can be English class, it can be math class, it can be Spanish class, it can be any kind of class. But when we include, as teachers, we include play in our classes, we're not only wasting time, as somebody said, some time, or as many parents or teachers think. We are actually using a very, very powerful strategy to improve the social, emotional, cognitive, and physical wellness of a child. Now, these my favorite pedagogic theoretician person in the educational world is Lev Vygotsky. I always say that I would have married him if I had met him. And he said that play contains all development tendencies in condensed form, and it and is itself a major source of development. So just by playing, we're helping children to develop different abilities. Can you think of any abilities that play um, helps to develop in children, in any children, or even in adults? So if you can think of anything, please write it down. I think we're now focused on early childhood, but I think I need to give a shout out to play as an adult. It has been proven that adults that play or have a more playful approach to life have a better um, mental health, have better mental health, and have less physical cardiovascular problems. So please play. Play is very important. And I don't mean only playing in your cell phone with Candy Crush or anything like that. Playing means experiencing new things. Plays develop social skills also. They learn a lot, several cognitive skills, learn to respect rules, of course. Children learn to take turns by playing. Children learn to interact with each other by playing, to interact with adults around them by playing. There are many ways in which children are um, boosted. The children development is boosted by play. So also you can have a better way to deal with life problems, of course. If you play, life problems are easy to deal with as a child or as an adult. Okay, so let's go to what our definition in Teach for Mexico, Enseña por Mexico, is for play. So this definition actually comes from the Lego Foundation, Lego, the little things that we used to play with, blocks. And for play to be considered quality play, it has to have 5 characteristics. It has to be meaningful, socially interactive, joyful, actively engaged, and iterative. Iterative means that it has to be repetitive. Children learn, and most of our adults also learn by repetition. The way it has to be repeating and repeating actions to have the same or similar result. That is why eh, when children, by telling you that children learn by repetition, that is why if you are familiar with children or if you have lived with children or told children stories or seen a movie with children, they want to see the movie again and again and again. And then they want to read the book, for you to read the book again and again and again. And sometimes if you change a word or if you change a part of the story, they tell you like, no, 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 teacher, sorry, that is wrong. What it said, it was this and this and this and that. Even very young children learn by repetition and they learn the book as it is. So these are the 5 characteristics of playful experience as we have adopted it in Teacher Mexico, and they come from research done by the Lego Foundation. So I'm going to show you some of the activities and strategies that I have personally used and some of the strategies that would cover these 5 characteristics to be considered playful experiences. So first, we have play with words. Children love playing with words. Do you remember playing with words when you were a child? If you do, please write it on the comments. Okay, Rolando, you still play with Legos. That's wonderful. And if you play with words now, please also tell me. And one of the things that children love is to discover new words or to create new words. Again, those of us who have been with children, if you remember, they like repeating words. They like listening to them, making a sound change to them. For example, they get one word and they say like cat, and they would repeat it, cat, 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 and they want to play with words. Also, children are the most creative people in the world. So if you give them a chance, they can create new animals. For example, this is an exercise that I have done with some of my children, including my own children that now are teenagers, but when they were babies, we used to invent different animals. So we have, for example, in this case, we have the sloth, which is a dolphin and a sloth, a chickofin, a sharib, etc. You can see them on the screen. But the important part is they mix these 2 animals and something is also happening. They are creating, it's engaging for them, but also they are developing their cognitive area by describing an animal that has 2 different characteristics. For example, let's go to the fly giraffe, which is a fly and a giraffe together. So exactly, vocabulary is that dominus. So in this case, the fly giraffe, how would you describe what this animal can do? This is also something that helps them develop cognitive skills. Can the fly giraffe fly? Does it eat leaves? Where does it live? Is it very, very tall or is it a mini giraffe? And you can check also adjectives with them if we're going to the grammatical part. Which is taller, the fly giraffe or the turtleiger? In my case, I have my own personal animal that was created by my children. You can see it here probably. It's a mixture of cat, a snake, and a butterfly. And its name is Papacuacelotl because it's the different names in Nahuatl for butterfly, cat, and snake. And Papa Quasselotl gave us lots of fun time because we would imagine what he or she could do. In this case, it's a she, what she could do if she could fly, what kind of animals would she eat, if she was a herbivore or a carnivore. And it was really fun to see all the different stories Papa Quasselotl lived with. And this was made probably like 10 or 12 years ago and still lives in my daughter's room. And it was very meaningful for them because they created it. It was something that I didn't invent. It was a total invention by them by seeing what characteristics they like from different animals. So playing with words can be very, very useful. And also, you don't need anything. Most of the things that we're going to see here are things that you need very, very few materials to work with. Then we also have Fingerplays. This is a must when we're teaching children. I know we have some people from Mexico, and I remember a lot, not finger plays, but toe plays. And we're going to see it in a second. When I was a child, I remember we have this version of the um, this little piggy. We have it in Mexico. If you remember, please put it on the comments. And I remember loving my mother to play it with me. And this is something that really helps children and really helps adults to bond with children because you're telling a story with parts of their body. In this case, we have these little piggy. Imagine it's my toes. I'm not going to show you my foot because not. But imagine that these are my toes and you saying, this little piggy went to the market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy had roast beef. This little pig had none. And this little piggy went wee, wee, wee all the way home. And then you ask the child to repeat it with you. And in this case, when they are learning a second language, even if they don't repeat it exact words, they're getting the rhythm of the language, how the language sounds. English is a very rhythmic um, language. So by repeating this many times, you are helping it. And so, and also you need to put emotion to your um, doing it. It's not the same if I say like this little piggy, that if I say like this little piggy went to market, this little piggy stayed home, this little piggy had roast beef, this little piggy had none, and this little piggy went wee, wee, wee all the way home. So it's important that you put emotion to it. And we also have with thumbs. This one is with fingers, and we can see like this. And this also helps for fine motor skills, especially with children, very young children, when they are starting to work with their hands and seeing how their hands work. So you see, fee, fi, fo, fum. See my fingers, see my thumb. And then you curl them. Fee, fi, fo, fum. Bye bye fingers, bye bye thumb. See, I'm an adult and I cannot do it like this very well. So this helps children, again, to listen to the language, to repeat to the language, to get the rhythm of the language, but also it helps you develop their fine motor skills. Now, I dare you to try it with your non-dominant hand. I'm a right-handed, so I'm gonna try to do it with my left hand, and let's see if it works. Fee, fi, fo, fum. No, it's the other way around. Sorry. Fee, fi, fo, fum. See my fingers, see my thumb. Fee, fi, fo, fum. Bye bye fingers, bye bye thumb. So see, even as an adult, you need to work sometimes with your fine motor skills. Yes, it's important to help the body to build language. Remember that children are very kinesthetic. They need to move to remember things. So the more you make them move, the more meaningful the play is going to be, and the more meaningful is going to, sorry, and the more meaning they're going to be able to get from it, and the more it's going to be remembered by them. Okay? Now, songs. You were saying that you like songs when you were children, and that some of you remember songs from kindergarten. This is a very nice song I like because it talks about the senses, but also um, it helps the children develop their own self-esteem. So in this case, the song goes something like this. I am special. I am me. I have two eyes so I can see, a nose to smell, two ears to hear well, a tongue to taste, and I'm in no haste. But that's not all because you see, I'm special. I am me. So, with songs, especially with children, it's very important that they move their hands at the same time that they are singing. Again, they're very kinesthetic, so the more they move their body at the same time, it's easier for them to make sense of the language, but it's also easier for them to remember. Talking with hands, Samuel Perez, so you talk with hands in your family. That's great. That is something that you need to pass on to your students and the children that are around you. Do you remember any other songs from kindergarten? It can be in your native language or it can be in English. I used to like a lot the song that the 10 Little Indians that was from kindergarten. And I still sing it sometimes when I'm very, very stressed. So tell me if you remember any other songs. Yes, they love it. All that, as you're right. They love it and they make them feel, and it makes them feel very, very comfortable. Now, another thing is stories. We all love stories. If you don't love stories, you don't have a Facebook. So if you have a Facebook, that's because you love stories, you love gossiping. That is why Facebook has been so popular, and Instagram and all that things are popular because they tell us stories about other people. We need to read stories to children, but we need to remember that stories have the wheels of the bus. Of course, sorry, I just read the songs part, the wheels of the bus. Let's go back to the stories. Sorry. Um, Stories, it's very important that when we read stories to children, stories show diversity. If we want to create empathy in the children, they need to learn and read about other people that are having similar experiences in different parts of the world or in different situations. And that's going to help us also teach for peace, create this um, understanding that we are all equal and that we can experience the same feelings. It doesn't matter where we are or how we look like. So you need to, as much as possible, you need to teach them stories and read them stories that include diversity of scenarios, diversity of people, that include also diversity of situations. The more variety you include in your stories, it's going to be better for them. Here is a very typical way of telling a story. You have the children sitting around you and you have the teacher reading the story. In this case, you can see that the pictures are big enough for the children to see. So that is very useful when you have a group that it's 7 or 8 or even 12 children. But if you have a group where you have 25 children, it's very difficult to see it all of them around you. Or sometimes you don't have the space. Well, it's not necessary. One thing is reading a story, and the other one is telling a story. So you can tell stories even if you don't have the space for them to sit down or the space for them to gather all around. What you need to do in that case is you need to first tell them and create a sign with them that it's going to show them that it's the time for storytelling. For example, you can use a cap So it's a storytelling time, and they know that this is storytelling time. You can sing a song at the beginning, so they know that the storytelling time comes. I have one way of doing it where it's like hands up, hands down, arms crossed, mouth closed, ears wide open. And that means for my students that it's storytelling time, and they know that they need to focus on what's happening. And when I say focus on what's happening, I don't mean that they cannot move because they're children, or that they cannot ask questions because they're children. That's perfectly fine, but they need to try to see what's happening in the story instead of bothering one another. And this is something very important. Children are gonna move. Brown Bear is a great, it's a great story, and you can do it with puppets. With you have a brown bear, and what do you see? And one of the stories, one of the things that you need to take into consideration is children are gonna move. Children are gonna ask questions. When you start telling brown bear, they're gonna probably tell you, teacher, I have a teddy bear in my house. Teacher, I have never seen a panda. Teacher, it's okay. It's their way of interacting with the story. So just acknowledge, because it's always important to acknowledge the kids comment, but also tell them, like, listen, we're going to take turns, and this is the turn of the story. So if you want to say something, raise your hand, you say it, and we will talk about it later, because it's also the way they can start getting what's happening and how to interact in as social beings. One of my favorite one of my favorite types of stories for telling stories to children is fables. Fables are short. They usually have very common characters, animals that talk. And in this case, this fable is not one for where animals talk, but it's a fable that I like a lot telling the children because I make them do sounds. So we have a man, a boy, and a donkey in the story. And what I tell them is that every time they hear the word man, they need to do this. It's a man. Every time they hear the word boy, they're going to do this. And every time they hear the word donkey, they have to do this, and they have to make the sound of a donkey. So by providing them with cues about what they need to do, I also ensure that they are paying attention and that they are less prone to interrupt the flow of the story. Now, this story is about a man, a boy, and a donkey. And I'm going to tell it to you very fast. But if you're in your house, and because you're now playful people, I want you to do what I told you. If I say man, you're going to do this. If I say boy, you're going to do this. And if I say donkey, you're going to do this. And if you want, you can also do Once upon a time, there was a man, a boy, and a donkey. The man and the boy wanted to sell the donkey in the market. So they started walking to the market. People saw what was happening and they started saying, "Oh, what a fool, man. There is a donkey there. He should climb on the donkey, ride it to the market." And the man heard them and said, "Okay, they're right. Let's do that." So he put his boy on the donkey. And then they continued walking. But people kept talking and saying, "Oh, what a fool, man. He is old. His boy is young. He should be on the donkey. The boy should be down. What is this? There's no respect for elders." So the man decided to switch and they continued walking. But people kept talking and said, like, "Oh, look at that bad father. his boy is young, he is old, his boy has no strength, he should be on the donkey instead of the father. So the father listened to them and he decided that both of them were going to be on the donkey. And they continued talking. And the people said like, oh, what a fool family. Come on. They're going to sell the donkey and nobody wants to buy a tired donkey. They both should be walking. Poor donkey, he's going to be so tired. So the man again listened to them and he decided to do this, carry the donkey. And the people continued talking and saying, oh no, poor donkey, he's upside down. He's gonna be so dizzy and nobody wants to buy a dizzy donkey. They should do something different. The man again listened to the people and they did this. And that's where I stop usually with children. And I tell them, what do you think is happening next? And they give you different um, endings for the story. And it's wonderful to see all the different endings that they give you. I usually end it by telling them that they crossed the river and because the donkey was so heavy, they couldn't balance it and the donkey fell and drowned in the river. And then also I ask them like, what's the moral of the story? And they usually come, they discuss it and they tell like, don't listen to people. And I say, yeah, don't listen to people except your mother and father and your family, because we don't want to create disruptions also in the classroom that they go out and say like, the teacher told us not to listen to you, mommy, anymore. So be careful with that only. So that's the stories. Also, you can create the stories with shapes. In this case, this is a picture by Oyoki. And what I do is I tell them like, how many circles, how many triangles, what colors do you see in the picture? This is a real painting. So you can even introduce who this Okoye is and who is she and where does she live? Where do you think she's from? And ask them about the painting and tell them who this person is. And I asked them to count how many circles, how many triangles, how many rectangles, and how many squares there are in the picture. And then I asked them to create their own version of a kid or a person using these shapes. And you can create this person here that I have here. This is Sally. And then you can ask them to create a story for Sally. And how old is she? Where does she live? What does she like eating? What does she doesn't like eating? Who is her best friend? Um, what does she like playing? And you can even ask them to create and make a physical representation of their new character. In this case, this is the physical representation of my character, not Sally, but another character. And I use this for two reasons. First, because I tell them this is my friend. He's not SpongeBob, but he looks like him. His name is Wally, and Wally is always hungry. So I also put it on the floor in the classroom and I ask children to count how many balls of paper they can put on his mouth. And it's also physical activity for them. We use numbers and they are developing fine and gross motor skills at the same time. And I also asked them to tell me a story about Wally. Why did Wally arrive to my house and how is Wally gonna continue living with me and what other things can Wally eat? So, and this is basically a box of, I think it was cornflakes or something like that. And it's only covered with paper. So it's very easy to do. Another way of doing it with geobands, you can create your own geobands table. and you put little nails, and then with rubber, with yeah, do you say, yeah, you create different pictures with rubber bands, and um, it's very useful for them to create different shapes. And with this, you're teaching shapes again, you're teaching colors, and you're working with motor skills. And it's much more fun than actually just like drawing a square 11 times and make a little plana. I don't know how to say plana in English, but a little thing repeating squares all over your paper. Then, of course, we have total physical response where the kids move a lot. This exact example is a mixture of total physical response and songs, total physical response and stories. We have experienced it when we moved like donkeys and men. That's also a mixture. Total physical response, it's usually used when the kid acts the thing that you're doing. So for example, if you say on, they have to be on a chair. Behind, they have to be behind a chair. That's total physical response. In this case, you have peanut butter and jelly, which is again moving your hands and doing actions that represent what's happening. So in this case, it's peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and jelly. First, you take the peanuts and you crunch them, Then you take the grapes and you squish them. Then you take the bread and you spread it. Then you take the sandwich and you eat it. I like this one because peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are typical in the United States. I don't think it's typical in Mexico, and I'm very sure it's not typical in any other Latin American country. I don't know about Asia or other parts. Tell me if it's typical in your area, um, the area where you come from. But this approaches them to also a cultural experience. And you can bring peanut butter and you can bring jelly and you can ask the children to actually make a sandwich and then eat it and then tell you if it's good or bad. And then try what is the typical sandwich that they like, or if they like sandwiches, maybe they don't like sandwiches. So it also provides something. Okay, so Teacher Panda says that that peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are not popular there either. But in this case, um, it's something that most of the kids in the United States would have tried. So you can also tell them, like, listen, there are kids in another place where they eat this a lot. What would you recommend them? The sandwich that would be typical of your region, Mexico or Mazatlan or Guatemala or Peru, or what would be the typical sandwich that you would say that other children in the world should eat? Okay, and I see that. Then we have storytelling. I'm a passionate storyteller. I love telling stories for children and for adults. And one of the things that I like a lot is that they can retell the story according to what they remember. And sometimes it's very different from the story that you told them. So the storytelling path is basically you draw a path on the floor and they need to start retelling the story. So you put little props, and as they go by the props, they say like, there was a man, a boy, and a donkey, and then they changed, and they are retelling the story according to what they remember and how they heard it by the props. You can also put random props, and they need to start creating their own story. Then you can ask them to put the props for other children to do it. And also, storytelling stones is you have little stones where you draw or paste different characters and different shapes, and they need to take out the stone and read and make a story with the different stones they have. It's usually very useful with stones because they are easy to get and you can get them most everywhere. It's a very tricky thing because they can throw it at other people, but that's why you need to be sure that your class is well controlled and that they understand the rules. And if you don't want it to do it with stones, you can do it just with the little papers. The stones are more attractive, But another way of doing it is using tap bottles, Coke bottles, the tap of the Coke bottles, and you can paste it there. Then we have physical activities. In this case, I think we all have played, or most of us have played with trying to fishes from different places. What makes this specifically different, and this is the picture on your screen, is that children are inside boats, that they created their own. And then they are fishing from their boats and they can move from their boats. So just a tiny twist makes it completely different because the children are immersed in a sea now and they can tell a story and they can name the boat and tell others what their boat looks like and what is the characteristic of their boat, and they enjoy it a lot. And this is cardboard, and you can make the fish with cardboard, and you can make the fishing rod with a little stick, a clip, and some lace. Then we have also the lines with shapes. That's the middle picture on your screen. And in that case, they need to be stepping on the lines. And it can be one foot and then the other, or they can be jumping, or they can be walking backwards. And at the same time, they're talking about the lines. Is this a curved line? This is a straight line. Are you moving from right to left to right, from to back to front? And then you have the typical game where you need to throw rings. And I have one here. It's very small. That one is bigger. And this one that I have here was made with pizza card, a box of pizza, and with paper roll. This one is very useful and it's very simple to do. And this one, it's a very, very good idea now that you are in your houses because you can do it with almost no material and the material that you have in your house. And children really, really enjoy it a lot. In my case, what I use it for is we count, but we also check the colors. So for example, this one is green, and I have one that it looks green, but it's purple. It's different colors, but I think all of them are gonna look green on your screen. Sorry. So how many, and the different colors have different amount of points. So the green has 5 points and the blue has 10 points. And then they need to do the math also if they are older, and they can also practice with their math skills, the mathematical skills. And then we have experiments. Experiments are great because they activate their critical thinking and their creativity of children. There is a very, very, very good place for experiments. It's called From Toys to Trash. And this place was created by a man called Arvind Gupta from India. And what he uses in all his experiments are recyclable materials. All his experiments are done with recyclable materials. None of them are, for none of them you need technology or high technology. And in this case, you have a balloon diver. What you do with this one is you make the diver go up and down, and you create, because of the pressure of the bottle, the diver goes up or the diver goes down. And you can ask the child, why do you think that it goes up? Why do you think that it goes down? What if you put it upside down? And they start thinking, and even if they don't know the physical theorem or the physical law that goes behind it, they get it, and they get it very, very fast, sometimes faster than adults. And that helps them to develop their cognitive area, but also to develop some abilities to experiment in the future. Please, please, please check this one. Samuel said experiments are awesome for children. They are. And this specific page has thousands of experiments from experiments that you can do with very, very young children to experiments that you can do with adults or teenagers. So check it, it's free. Again, it's Arvind Gupta from Toys to Trash. And as you can see also, this is Creative Commons. So all his experiments are free to use and to share with other people, as long as you give credit to him. Okay, Teacher Panda said that he will share this channel on the description box. Thank you, Teacher Panda. Yeah, experiments work well with teenagers. They love experiments, and I think experiments work well with most everyone. And it also gives you this playful approach to life where if things don't go the way you plan, it's not necessarily so bad. It's something that it's just an experiment. You can experiment different ways of solving things, different ways of approaching things, and it creates resilience in you when you see that nothing happens when an experiment doesn't go as you planned. And then this is the last slide, but it's something that I always want for you to keep in mind. We're teaching young children, not English. It's very, very important that we remember that the most relevant part of our job is not sharing content, but making sure that the person that is receiving that content is feeling cared for and it's feeling catered for, and that he or she is having a good time in our class. So although this again is true for every single student that you have in your life, this is especially true for children. Children need to be sure that you care for them. And also children are people that you cannot fake with. Maybe teenagers, you can pretend that you like them. Children can see through to you. Sorry, see through you. So care for your children and remember the most important part are the children and not the contents that you are sharing with them. And this is my contact information. As Brandon said, I'm the early childhood director for Teach for Mexico. So I work with people that I train people to work with children, with very, very young children. We'll be delighted to hear from you if you want to have more information. That's my cell phone, that's my email. Please let me know if you want anything else. And it was a pleasure, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I was very nervous, but I think it went quite well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing this with us. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed what you shared with us. And I believe that it's going to be really useful for many people because, for example, my mom is an English teacher at a kindergarten. So I'm sure that she'll be using many of the activities that you talked about. So thank you for participating with us. Thank you to Enseña por Mexico for supporting this project. And thank you to all the people who have been watching this webinar series. I cannot thank you enough, Brenda, because I trust me when I say that what you're sharing, not only is it valuable, but at the same time meaningful. Because as you mentioned, what's more important than the content or the syllabus is the students. And that's a value that we want to promote here in Teacher Panda. So thank you guys for everything. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you to all the institutions that have supported us, like Canadem, Smart Training, Unite for Literacy, Códice, and Enseña por Mexico for doing all this work that you're doing. If you want to know more about Enseña por Mexico, you can actually check their website, and you can also find them on Facebook. And well, I don't know if there is some way in which the community can actually support the program or participate with Enseña por Mexico. If you would like to tell them more about it.
Yes, actually, we are working now to promote early childhood wellness in these times. So we have a Facebook group that it's called Todos Jugamos. I can share it with you, Brandon, if you can post it later. And these are talks that our aims as to adults as caregivers, and then how to play with children. So this is specifically a reaction to the COVID-19 situation, and we want it to be listened and shared with many people, because right now we realize that many children are living toxic stress situations, and we want to avoid that this is going to um, impact their lives in the future. So thank you. I'll share it with you.
Thank you very much, Brenda. I'll share all of that information in the description box, as well as on the Facebook page of Teacher Panda. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check their Facebook page at Enseña por México. And see you guys on Monday. Remember that on Monday we have the people from Códice talking about discrimination in the classroom. And on Tuesday we have people from Unite for Literacy talking about developing literacy at an early age. So thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for being with us. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.